All right, welcome to Veterans for Cannabis. Um, First and foremost, I want to thank Jared Campbell for being here with me again. And I want to thank for everybody who's listening today. Today we want to talk about the legalization and the struggles that some of us are having to see cannabis being legalized uh, um, in the broader spectrum, federally legalized. But we're going to talk about Texas, right? Right, Jerry Campbell? What's going on in Texas?
Well, right now, what's going on in Texas is that the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, he seems to be opposing THC, and so it's causing a little bit of some conflict there in Texas, especially among veterans like ourselves
Yeah,
who find benefit in both THC and also CBD. And so it's very interesting what's going on there.
yeah. What I find interesting before we go into the video is, how much the excuse for not legalizing THC is the harm they can do for the body, right? A new study shows that, I think you become higher risk of heart disease if you smoke cannabis, right? But we also know the same thing about cigarettes and alcohol and a bunch of other pills that we take, right? So what is the argument here? The argument here is that they're watching over our health, or the argument here is they're not benefiting as much as they would from alcohol, cigarettes, and big pharma. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I think really the same thing you do. I mean, what is their opposition to cannabis? I mean, what could be? I think it's something I ask myself over and over again. Like you just say, are they protecting us for something, or is it deeper?
Or are they watching their investments?
Yeah, are they getting something out of it? That
Right,
that's the thing is that I mean, you would hate to think that, but something has to make sense.
right. Because, you cannot say, in one breath that cannabis is so bad for us, and then in the other breath, literally minimize, the health risk to cigarettes and alcohol and everything else. Because, you know, they're there, you know. People smoke cigarettes, they're more likely to have heart disease and lung cancer and throat cancer. And who knows what the heck else? Alcohol, you can get liver disease, cirrhosis of the liver. You can get throat and stomach cancer. I mean, but still legal, right? You know what I mean?
Well,
So what is the opposition?
right. Well, with cannabis is that you don't have to just smoke cannabis. I mean, we can get cannabis in so many different ways. That's even better and probably a lot
Right.
more healthier at times than smoking.
Yeah.
But smoking cannabis, and I know that you and I have talked about this. It's something you and I,
Yeah.
we enjoy it. But there's
Right.
nothing wrong with having something in life you enjoy. You know,
You know, yeah, I'm agreeing with you 100%. And I always said it, man. Some people like to drink wine and beer. Some people like to smoke the cigarettes or cigar. I really enjoy smoking cannabis.
right?
And that's with due respect to everybody who do not agree with me, but that's just me. I like smoking cannabis, and I should be allowed, to do the
Right.
things that I enjoy. Um, and that's that. Of course, there's limitations to doing things that you enjoy. If you're the kind of person that like to sleep around with little kids, man, that's not acceptable. Never been socially acceptable.
Yeah.
But cannabis is not hurting nobody but actually yourself, you know? So do you have that 1 minute video, man? Let's play that real quick.
Yeah, I do. And so we're going to listen to just a 1 minute clip. This video was about 3 weeks ago when Dan Patrick Um, he apparently tosses some THC edibles at a reporter. Um, if by any means we cannot hear this video, we will redo our video and show the video so everybody can see it. So we're gonna go ahead and play that 1 minute video of
All
Lieutenant
right,
Governor Dan in Texas.
uh, okay, let's do that then.
All right,
Oh,
here we go.
yeah, let's do that.
Ban THC products in Texas with Senate Bill 3, but it's still unclear whether the governor will sign it into law. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is a big proponent of the bill, and this morning he's raising eyebrows after tossing a bag of edibles at reporters.
Would you buy anything off that you know what was in it? That could change your whole mental state for the rest of your life? Would you want that? Anybody want this bag? Catch. You want it? I don't think you want it.
Well, the lieutenant governor says many of the edibles could be confused as candy by children. He pointed out flavored gummy candy and brightly colored flavored drinks and gummy worms. Well, Senate Bill 3 is now headed to Governor Greg Abbott's desk for a signature. If signed, the bill will go into effect September 1st.
All right.
So the argument here is that gummies could be confused for candies, right? For kids,
Yep.
right? Just like, we gotta keep the pills away from the kids, narcotics and medicine. Just like we gotta keep knives away from the kids. Just, most of us keep alcohol, locked up away from the kids. I mean, I could keep going. We keep our guns, or a responsible adult will keep guns away from the kids, right? So I do not understand. I do not get it. I do not. Are they saying that typical Americans, or in this case Texans, are not responsible adults or responsible parents? Is that the argument?
Well, I got one thing to add. The lieutenant governor was saying, "Would you buy something that you don't know what's in it?" Well, what's interesting to debate the governor was we know exactly what's in our cannabis when we buy it from a shop. When I buy
So
gummies or even a
yeah,
vape, it tells me what's in it. It tells me
right,
everything that's in it, every
right,
ingredient, how it was made.
yeah. So let me be the devil's advocate here, right?
Right.
Do we still know 100% what's in cigarettes?
A lot of
Do
cartridges
we?
that are not. I mean, there's a lot of additives, aren't there, in cigarettes?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there is actually. That's if it was just the tobacco, that's something else, but that's not the case, and that's not it's not what killing people, right? So
Right.
we have to be, as a politician. Hopefully I'll get there some days. I don't know if I want to, but we'll see. As a politician, you cannot talk out of both sides of your mouth. Feel what I'm saying? You cannot support, the self alcohol and, all this good stuff, but in the same breath saying, hey, we don't support cannabis because we do not know what's in it. See, that's just ludicrous. It's like, really, I really, what's this guy's name again?
Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor Dan.
Dan Patrick. I'm interested to know if Dan Patrick, how long he's been in politics, and if he has been in politics for long term. I would like to know what was his reaction to the opiates crisis. Because the opiate crisis, there was a lot of politicians involved in that shit. Politicians that still in our freaking Congress and Senate, right? They were protecting big pharma. They were saying less than 1% will get addicted. And out of that, we had a full freaking outbreak of addicts. because of the lie input by the CBC in the bottle in the labels, and they knew that was a lie. But you know how much money they were making out of a single pill? What was the profit? They stupid. So I would like to know if this guy's been around for a while and what was his role. If he was around, what was his opinion on the on the epidemic, epidemic? You know, and I also would like, those people who opposed cannabis and were, for, Percocets and Oxy and all that stuff. I want to know what's their opinion. You know, are they talking out of both sides of their mouth, or did they learn something? That, I don't know. But I really would like to know.
No,
I think, yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I was saying, I agree with everything you were saying. I would also love to see them talk to more veterans as well
Yeah,
when it comes to something like
yeah,
this, instead of just making a decision, which sometimes leads me to think there's something, a profit into this decision making.
yeah. That's
Because
how I feel too.
because I know a lot about Dan Patrick because I used to live in Texas. So
Yeah,
I'm very familiar with a lot of the politicians that are in Texas. A lot of them are still in office, even when I used to live there.
mhm,
And I don't understand what they're doing. And a lot of them claim
right.
to support veterans. So if that's the stance that a lot of them have made, and even I know they've made this stance because when I lived in Texas, then why would they oppose something that is benefiting veterans? And if they listen to the veterans, right? If they do their
Mhm,
research, it doesn't take very long to do. There's a huge veteran community that's in support for cannabis that is showing benefits, like real health benefits.
yeah.
So I have to then question the the government of Texas. They're not listening, and
No, they're not.
this is more than just they're caring about our health or that they care
You know,
about children. It's
yeah.
deeper.
And yeah, and I gotta say, this is one issue that, in my opinion, has been it's been a long time, right? And that is career politicians.
Right.
I don't think George Washington never intended to be a career politician. He actually, was against it. So, with Senate, man, I'll be okay with having term limits. Just like presidents, do governors get uh, um, limits on how many times they can run? I don't know, but do they, Jared?
What's that?
You know,
Say that again
does
now.
the go does governors, right, have term limits?
I think it's different for a lot of the states. I
It
think
is different.
states are different because I know that Texas is different than like Oregon or anything like that. So I think I have to look into each state because I think it's different in how they run.
I know,
And they're
I know Florida. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that DeSantis cannot run the next because he maxed out his terms.
right.
But I don't know how it is to, and Senate, that's another one. I think Senate should have time limits.
I mean, that's a
But
great question because I moved out of Texas in 2018, and so
right,
Abbott and Dan Patrick were both, well, Abbott was still governor, and Dan Patrick was still lieutenant governor, and so obviously it's been that way since I left in 2018. So yeah.
well, that's 2018. That's 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's 7 years. So yeah, man, I want to look more into this, into this Texas, development. And there's a lot of things happening, across the globe, the Iran and all this stuff going on, man. I do not want to distract people from what's going on out there, but I think cannabis, it is an important subject both in the medicinal and the economical part of our country.
Right.
The taxes that we can revenue, the clothes that we can build, the papers, we can build instead of using trees, use the hemp part. There's so many benefits, both beneficial and financial. I just want to know. I'm trying to analyze what's their thoughts.
Mhm.
But honestly, go ahead.
There's one thing I wanted to bring up real quick is that I believe how important this is too, because I'm one of those people who would love to go home at some point to visit family.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
because of the way our laws are, I can't travel in certain states with cannabis. Does that make sense? And
yeah,
so I have family in Texas. If Texas proceeds with what they're doing, that will make it harder for me to ever go home to visit
yeah,
family. So I think that's something
yeah,
else to look into. And how does that affect us? Like when we travel, I mean, how
yeah,
can we travel without getting in trouble, knowing that we use it for medical? I mean, I
yeah,
have a marijuana card, like medical marijuana card, but
yeah.
what is
I
what
do
Texas?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, man. I never thought about the traveling part, because I'm a seek for forgiveness kind of guy, you know, especially if it's something that benefits me, like I gotta take my daily medication every day with me, every time I travel, how come I cannot take my doobie? I'm just asking because I think it's stupid. And honestly, you know, you know, I seek for forgiveness if I ever, get pulled over, I got something on me. But it is my choice and it is for my own benefits that I'm doing it. And if that says, I'm going to prison for that, it is what it is. I'm not hurting nobody. I just like my grass. I mean, you know, so in saying that, man, we are at 17 minutes. I mean, I think it's a good time in saying that. Let's do this, man. Let's come back to this exact point as we continue learning more about the Texas and the federal, um, why they're against, such a legalization. I want to learn more about this.
Mhm.
Um, Talking out of my butt right now, I just think it is about money, and the personal worth. That's just what I think. But hey, let me check more into it.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna be
You know what
doing
I
too.
mean?
We're into this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So let's do this, man.
I
Yeah.
was stuck. I know what we were saying before we went on. I was stumbling across some of the things that the support that uh, Dan Patrick is getting, and I told you some of it was from big pharma companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're kind of getting close. I mean, you're not too far
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. No.
We'll talk more
I
about
really hope. I really hope I am, but I doubt it.
it. Right.
You know. Only time will tell. So let's do some homework. Like I said, I just got home from Boise last night at 3 o'clock in the morning. So look at my eyes, man. They're tired. Um. So let's look more into this. This new wave of legislation when it comes to cannabis. And let's continue that conversation. I think it's a very important conversation. And if anybody wants to join, just give us a holler, man. I really, I know we're not popular, but I really would love to hear from our Senate and congressional representatives, both in the state and, federal representative. So if it's okay, Jerry, I would like to extend the invitation. If anybody can hear this, is that cool with you?
Yeah, that's cool with me because I would love to have a conversation with some of these people if we can get them on.
Yeah,
It really would be. It would be cool. I mean,
yeah. So yeah, so I think that would be cool. I think it would be a great debate and something that needs to be discussed side of a political environment, you know?
Right.
So, all right, brother. Like I said, I'm 20 minutes. Let's do this. Let's cut it off here. We'll see you guys next week.
All right, brother. All right, it was good.
All right. Everybody
Thanks for
stay
all.
tuned. Have a great day.
All right, out.